The impersonal and automatic activity known as the universal energy get manifested in three main aspects as the same universal energy manifesting three aspects. One aspect is the dynamism of the universal energy. The universal energy is dynamic, active. Active means constant transformation. Constant transformation of the universal energy is the outcome or the result of the constant dynamism. On the other hand, the constant transformation of all things and beings by the universal energy results in the outcome of impermanency, which means there is no being as well as no thing that can be called permanent. Even scientifically, everything and being is instant. In Sanskrit, it is called Shana Bangura. Appear to disappear instantly. That means all activities are like sparks, a series of sparks. Every spark gets manifested to vanish instantly, retaining no permanent identity. This means both in the material and in the mental world, all things and beings are impermanent. Therefore, the main aspect, the resultant main aspect of the activity called universal energy is that there is no permanent being or thing in the universe. But apparently, our sense organs experience things and beings, and they look real. That is only an apparent reality. Through the insight of wisdom, an enlightened one, called Buddha, can see this impermanency through transformation of the activity called universal energy or universal dynamism. This means the entire world, both the mental and the physical world that our sense organs experience is only a mirage. The things and beings look real, but actually there are no things and beings. It is the reality of the universe, the reality of all things and beings that the Buddha has said in his language to be anatta, translated as no permanent soul, devoid of a permanent soul, That means devoid of a permanent entity. Even the omnipotent, omniscient, eternal God is really not eternal but impermanent. Impermanent means instant. Appear to look real but actually not real. Once this reality of the mental and the physical world is realized by an enlightened one through one's own insight of wisdom. The enlightened one becomes free of both attachment and resentment, liking nothing, disliking nothing, because, as I mentioned earlier, there is no permanent being or permanent thing in the entire universe which is apparently real, look permanent, but nothing and no being can be said to be permanent. They are only apparent realities. The actual realities, the impermanency of all things and beings manifested or created by the universal energy. It is a reality that can be realized by oneself. That realization comes through the insight of wisdom. Wisdom is knowledge, not knowledge. Knowledge comes from the outside, from outside sources, through our sense organs. But wisdom gets manifested within oneself when one's mind is beyond knowledge. Beyond knowledge means beyond thinking. It is the knowledge that gets manifested as thinking. All our sensations that our mind becomes aware get manifested as images of the past memory. It is through past memory that we recognize things and beings. Memories look real, but actually not real. They are only illusions. But they look real in our mind. For example, the past is dead, but our mind is alive to the past, dead past. The future is unborn, but the mind is alive to the unborn future. Thinking takes the mind through mental images into the dead past as well as into the unborn future. This is the reality that we experience through our sense organs and through our mind. Once this reality is realized, one can be said to be enlightened, so that he is free from the ignorance called moha in Pali by the Buddha. Moha means ignorance of reality. As I mentioned earlier, the reality is nothingness, voidness. That is why Buddha referred to the ultimate reality called Nibbana or Nirvana in Sanskrit to be void, using the word sunyato. Void means there is no entity, no item that can be detected by our sense organs. Animito in Pali words. The real nature of things and beings as realized by the Buddha is void, because nothing and no being can retain a permanent identity that can be called a soul. Therefore, the Pali word anattata used by the Buddha is sometimes translated as soullessness, absence of a soul, using the Sanskrit word anatma. Atma in Sanskrit means soul. Anatma means no soul. Soul means there is no soul, means a permanent entity. Anatta means, or anatma means, the absence of permanent entities that our sense organs become aware of through the ignorance of the reality of things and beings. The actual reality is impermanency. That means there is nothing that we can be attached to, nor that we can resent. It is this same physical principle that had been realized by the Greek philosophers who lived in the 5th century BC. The Greek philosopher called Heraclitus, who lived in the 5th century BC, made a scientific statement regarding all things and beings, comparing them to be a river that is constantly flowing. And he said, no one can step into the same river twice. But the apparent reality is, we see the same river is flowing constantly. But it is not the same river that flows. Once we step into the river once, we can't step into the same river again. That is the nature of the impermanency. Once this reality is realized, as I mentioned earlier, enlightened beings are free of mental attachment and resentment. And also, that is the result of mind being free of the ignorance of the reality. That is, such a mind is called free from raga, dosa, moha. The ultimate reality called Nibbana is defined by the Buddha in the Nibbana Sutta, this course called Nibbana Sutta, saying, raga koyo, dosa koyo, moha koyo, idam muchyate Nibbana. Nibbana means the absence of attachment, resentment, and ignorance of the reality. The actual reality of all things and beings is the impermanency. Instantly they look real, but they are only sparks that appear to disappear instantly. They are waves like light waves and sound waves, they rise up to vanish, come down instantly. The uncertain principle in science has found that even electrons are impermanent. Sometimes they look as particles and sometimes as waves. Therefore, we cannot say whether an electron is a particle or a wave. That is the nature of the uncertain principle discovered by the modern scientists. More than 2,500 years back, Buddha saw the same reality of impermanency of all things and beings, retaining no permanent entity or soul to be attached to or to resent. As I mentioned earlier, once this reality is dawned in oneself, one is free from attachment, resentment, and ignorance of the reality.